Dodge Dumps was getting renovated when the cult forced it to close.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Far Cry 5. This is a game that I dislike for a lot of reasons, and I love for a lot of other reasons. This is not going to be a totally negative video. This is going to be my first impressions on the game after about 5 or so hours, and to be fair, I do think that this game is very polished in the gameplay and in the settings. It looks fantastic. I really like the enemy characters, like the main villains and stuff. I think they're very interesting. Where Far Cry 5 falls apart, though, is when you get into combat, because we're 6 games now into Far Cry, and they still can't get enemy AI right, and they can't get it to properly differentiate between certain enemies and prioritize them over others, and every time you get into combat in this game, the entire goddamn thing falls apart. And you're gonna see that in a second here. So, there's a cougar right over there. It's a cougar, it's doing cougar things. It's attacking one of my allies, and they're gonna start fighting it. Totally cool, awesome. Out of goddamn nowhere appears this enemy Peggy helicopter, and it starts firing at the cougar and my allies. Now, that's hilarious and stupid because they're attacking a cougar that's attacking some other guys too. Weird stuff happens, I totally understand it. The problem is, this happens all the time in the game, and now a goddamn turkey's attacking everyone too. Who knew turkeys were that freaking aggressive? I didn't, today I learned. But this is the issue with the game. It's fine to have weird little moments like this happen every now and then, but these constantly happen all throughout the game, and it makes regular combat really grating after a while, because every time you get into any combat situation, it attracts everything within a goddamn 3-kilometer radius, and it gets really irritating. At this point, I firmly believe there are way too many enemy spawns in this game, and we talk about open worlds having nothing in them. I would honestly prefer that than every time I see an enemy to attract everything around it too, because you can't attack like a small little encampment or anything that's beside a road, because every 20 seconds, and I'm not exaggerating, it feels like every 20 seconds there is another enemy car that's running down the road. They see you, they start attacking you. You can't even drive on the roads for more than a few seconds because you'll run into other enemies that try to run you off the road, or they'll start chasing you, they'll fire rockets at you. All this ridiculous stuff that makes it very difficult to navigate and play the game properly. And because there are so many enemies and so many different types of factions in the game, so you'll have allies, you'll have animals, you'll have prey animals and predator animals, and then the Peggies on top of it, it makes every battle a giant fustercluck, and that is really entertaining for a while, but it's not when it always happens, and it takes you out of the experience. And to be entirely fair, I would be fine with all that stuff happening if the game didn't have the exact same bugs that we've had since Far Cry 2. This game is extremely buggy even on the non-AI end. There's been multiple times when I've been playing this game where I've seen enemies or objects off in the distance as close to like 100 feet away. They just pop out of existence right in front of me. Like entire enemy blockades in front of roads I've tried to circumvent around no more than maybe like 120 feet away. Then I turn around again and they're not freaking there. Oh, that guy's right there. Oh god, don't see me. Yeah, we're gonna go this way and around behind him. Because as long as I don't go... Actually, he did almost see me. Wait, where did they... What the fuck? Where did they go? Other stuff too, like setting a turkey on fire and watch it just stand in the middle of fire and not do anything and not even die. Apparently turkeys are fireproof, who knew? There's another great example of pop-in right here where I was running up and I saw some smoke ahead, so I went up towards it and then right in front of my eyes it randomly disappeared and despawned. Again, I can handle stuff like this happening in open world games because there's a lot of stuff for the game to handle, but it's happening so often that I can't go more than 5 minutes without a major bug occurring. And I think that's a little bit ridiculous, again, considering we're 6 games in. It's disappointing and a giant shame to me because I really want to like every aspect of this game. Again, I think it looks fantastic. I love the actual gunplay in it, and I want to be able to do things reliably, like be able to go hunting out in the woods without a goddamn helicopter showing up every 2 seconds. The biggest problem with the amount of enemies and the amount of AI bugs in the game is that it completely ruins the pacing. There are no moments of brevity between having your giant epic shootouts that have random turkeys that appear out of nowhere. Everything is constantly happening all the time, and it makes it very tiring. There are plenty of moments where you'll kill an enemy and it'll cause others to spawn either right on top of them or right beside you, and it completely ruins the pacing of your firefight. Friend in the head. Oh, now he noticed. But he's waving at me, he's not doing anything. Hello? Yeah, that's a nice gun you got there. What the crap? The game has crashing issues in my experience as well. In fact, during this gameplay, when I was trying to record about 10 minutes of gameplay, I had 2 crashes in a row. There's some major hitching problems too. The game will randomly freeze for me for up to 10 seconds, and the frame rate is up and down and all over the place. Now, it's worth noting again that I don't think that this game is bad per se. I've had a lot of fun playing it, and my annoyances with this game are basically because I want it to be a lot better than it is, because there are very great moments in this game where you feel like a giant badass or something hilarious will happen or work out in your favor, and those are the best parts of Far Cry, and they always have been. The problem is, this one takes all the enemies and all those moments to the extreme, and it makes them become less special than they used to be. For every epic moment of you fighting off some enemies and having a cougar randomly come up and attack and kill the last one, you see a bear running underwater. Or you get reminded that the AI in Far Cry has major issues driving a car. Yeah, I think this game's in kind of a weird spot with the realism. This type of thing needs to be prioritized when making a new game, because to be honest, a lot of the stuff that's going wrong in this game, a lot of the bugs and glitches are very similar or the same type of thing that I lambast a lot of the really crappy games that I play. I shouldn't be seeing the same bugs in Far Cry 5 that I'm seeing in a game like Hot Mars 69. Alright, so at the start of this video, I said I would talk about positive things too, so let's try and do that a little bit, shall we? So, of course, like I already said, this game looks beautiful. The scenery, the location, the settings, they all look fantastic. It's a shame that I can't enjoy a lot of it because I keep getting attacked by random stuff on the side of the road. But all in all, the game looks really good and on par with the rest of the franchise. I really like the general gunplay mechanics. I think that works really well when it's working properly. And it's really fun because you get a great power fantasy of mowing through dozens of enemies. The characters and missions I find are really intriguing and for the most part very fun to go through. So there's some really good side characters and I really enjoy the main villains. I've heard people say that the main villains aren't as good as the last ones from the previous games. Personally, I've always kind of thought that Voss was a bit of an overhyped villain because he didn't really do a whole lot, and he just spouted things from like a thesaurus. That's kind of all he did. Whereas in this one, I feel like the enemies and the villains are very interesting because they draw from a lot of historical stuff that happened, things like Waco in the 90s. It's very interesting to see that come to the forefront in a video game, and I think it's a really cool topic and setting to kind of explore. The music is also fantastic. There's a lot of really good licensed out songs, as well as some great composed stuff that was made in-house too. It's all really fitting with the setting, and for the most part, it works really well. Even the map is filled with lots of interesting things around it, more interesting than I've played in games like Watch Dogs or Far Cry 3. There's a lot of stuff to do, a lot of interesting stuff to see. If you find something off in the distance, you can probably fly or drive over to it and see what's going on. When you get to a lot of these places too, there's really creative ways to access them as well. So in a lot of other open world games, particularly with Ubisoft, they have a tendency to lock things off to you, or you have to like maybe find a key, maybe lockpick something to get inside of it. This game though has a lot of really interesting mechanics, things like having to turn on power to flush some water out of a bunker so you can access it, or find a sniping nest and fire a lock off from the inside of a building, really different and creative ways to access these areas that make it enjoyable to play and experience and problem solve. The co-op mode as well is always welcome. You can play the entire game through as co-op. Unfortunately, it doesn't save your story progress, but you do get to keep money and XP that you get from playing the co-op campaign. I've also toyed around with the arcade mode a little bit, and I think it has a really cool idea. I've heard really good things about the level editor, and the arcade mode is cool because it incorporates all the player-created levels and lets you vote on the ones that you want to play. Then you can rate them afterwards, so you get like basically an infinite supply of new game modes and new maps that you can play through. Yeah, it's got some really cool ideas. It's a shame that there's other stuff in it that hampers it down, in my opinion, and I want that to be fixed, because I think underneath all the negative stuff I talked about, there is a really good game. Unfortunately, it's currently being overshadowed by some really poor optimization, some really bad AI, and some game-breaking bugs. That's sad. That's not something I like to report on because this is a AAA experience and I do expect more. So yeah, that's basically my thoughts on Far Cry 5 after about 5 hours or so. I'm sure there's going to be someone in the comments saying, I didn't experience any of these bugs, so they don't exist. Well, that's not really a justification, so kindly leave. Just leave. I don't want to talk to you ever again.